Hey, what's going on, beautiful people? I want to share a perspective with you. And when I make these videos and I share my perspective, I'm never saying that I'm right and you're wrong, or I'm right and somebody else is wrong. I'm simply sharing my perspective and my history and what I've experienced with you to offer possibly another viewpoint that somebody else may not have considered before. Um, Again, that doesn't make me right. I'm just sharing my experience with you. Yes, I value my experience, but I don't think that my experience is more valuable than yours. I know that your experience isn't better or worse than mine. Your experience is different than mine. So that's why we have different viewpoints and different perspectives, because we've led different lives. And there's information that you have and you know that I need to improve my existence and the way I treat other people and the way I live my life. So there's information that you have that I need. There's information that I have that you need. So when I share my perspective, I'm not in any way saying that I'm right and you're wrong, or my experience is more valuable than yours, or anything like that. I believe that my experience is just different than yours, and I'm trying to offer um, you some value of what I've been through and the conclusions that I've come to hopefully improve your ability to navigate what we're going through, because we're all dealing with difficult circumstances right now. So when I offer my viewpoint, I'm not talking down to anyone. I'm trying to talk to you. So please take it that way. So I'm not saying that I'm right or you're wrong or anything like that. I'm just offering a perspective. So this perspective I want to bring to you, I'm going to bring it to you, sort of how I learned it, and how it applies to what's happening today, and how I use it today, and how I use it in so many facets of life, and how it's helped me. Now, most advice helps you most of the time, and it can hurt you in some instances. So I know I've overused this advice to my own detriment, but I want to give you this tool so you can use it to your advantage. It's not always going to be perfect, but you can use this tool to your advantage. And I want to share it with you. So, what I want to talk about is framing, and what I mean by framing is, and I want to share with you how I learned this. So, I grew up playing baseball. Baseball was a huge part of my life. I love the game of baseball. It was important to me. I started playing when I was 5. I played up until I got in high school, and all the kids outgrew me and got bigger, faster, stronger. I was a late bloomer, so all the kids kicked my butt, and I wasn't any good when all the other kids got bigger, faster, stronger. I was kind of the runt, slow, didn't have all the skills those guys had. But anyway, aside from that, I learned some very, very valuable lessons from organized sports. One, what it's like to take a loss. And that's something that this generation, and never mind, I'm not going to even get sidetracked on that. But let's just talk about the game of baseball and framing, okay? I learned framing at a very young age, and I want to explain to you what framing is in baseball. So, framing in baseball is, there is, to the people that don't understand baseball, or casual observers, or don't really pay attention to baseball at all, what framing is when during the game of baseball the pitcher's throwing pitches to the catcher, and the catcher is catching it, and there is a strike zone based on the dimensions of home plate and the dimensions of the batter, where the batter's standing, the batter's height in relation to home plate, and the width of the home plate. There's what's called the strike zone. Anything that's within this zone is considered a strike, and anything that's outside this zone is considered a ball. So a strike is beneficial to the pitcher, a ball is beneficial to the batter, and enough strikes is the batter's out, enough balls the batter gets to take a base, okay? So one is positive to the pitcher and one's detrimental to the pitcher. And the pitcher's team goes along with that. So if it's detrimental to the pitcher, it's detrimental to the team, the entire team. Same with the catcher. The catcher knows this. So the person catching the pitch from the pitcher understands that everything that's a strike is positive and everything that's a ball is negative. It's either above the line or below the line, okay? So the catcher understands this. Well, the person standing behind the catcher is the umpire, and the umpire has to decide every single pitch if it's a ball or a strike. He has to make this decision. And depending on his viewpoint and his perspective, where this pitch crosses the plate in relation to the dimensions of the batter, whether this pitch is a ball or a strike. Okay? So during this game of pitches, most game have several hundred pitches, about 100 from one side and about 100 from the other, and sometimes more, and usually more. There's 100 pitches from each team. Like I said, there's over 200 pitches per game. The catchers understand the game. They understand that a strike is good and a ball is bad. So the catchers perform this act that's not illegal. It's legal to do this. They perform this act behind the plate as they catch the ball of what's called framing. So when a pitch comes across the plate, and it says you have to come across the plate, when a pitcher throws the ball, if the pitch crosses the plate dead center of the strike zone, in the exact middle of the strike zone, the catcher's going to catch the ball exactly in that spot, and if you watch the game carefully, he's going to hold it there knowing that this ball crossed the plate as a strike, and the umpire will call it so. So he will hold his glove in this strike position because it's quite obvious that this pitch was a strike until the umpire calls this pitch a strike, okay? What framing is that a pitch that is sort of on the line or outside the line, the catcher is going to turn his glove a certain way, whether it's inside, outside, too low, too high. He's going to turn his glove a certain way and make a motion as he catches the ball to make the ball appear as though it's a strike. Does that make sense? He's trying to frame it from outside the strike zone to the strike zone. Okay? Simple premise. But again, this is not perceivable by a casual observer. Somebody that doesn't pay attention to the game of baseball, doesn't even know what framing is, someone that takes in a game from time to time, or a casual observer or a casual fan, isn't going to understand or see this. But the people that are playing the game know this. The people that are huge fans of the game, they're going to see and notice framing, okay? And they're going to see it for what it is. Whether it's fair play for everybody because there's no rules against it. But people are going to understand that when they see a ball that gets framed as a strike, both teams know it happened. The fans for both teams know what happened, and the umpire, for whatever reason, missed that pitch, blinked at the wrong time, or instead of paying attention to the pitch, he was paying attention to the glove, those things. But again, the result is the same. The result is a ball, something that was out of play or out of bounds, is now brought in bounds, and now it's detrimental to the opposite team. This is framing. This is not unusual. This happens all the time, but it's meant to deceive. That's the principle of it. It's meant to deceive the person reviewing it, the person that's making the decision on the outcome. It's meant to deceive them, and that's just a reality of it, okay? So that's as best and as simple as I can explain framing. This is what happens every single day in baseball. Pitches are framed, and it's meant to deceive and change the outcome of the game, and it's meant to deceive the person making the decision, the observer that is going to change the outcome of the game. Okay, so the reason why I bring this concept up and why this perception matters and why I use this perception all the time is that, and how this is helpful for people that don't understand it or don't see it. This framing is done on such a large and vast scale when it comes to media and mainstream media and news and all these sorts of outlets. And you need to realize that the public is the umpire. The public is the umpire. We, as a public, we make decisions. Whether we're a good umpire, a bad umpire, a casual observer, it doesn't matter. We are the umpire. Our thoughts matter. Our decisions matter. The conclusions we come to matter, okay? It determines the outcome of the game, okay? So whether you're paying close attention to the game or not, I mean, if you're the umpire and you're paying attention to the stands, or if you're eating a hot dog and the ball comes across the plate and you weren't paying attention, you still have to make a decision. So as these news stories are popping up and these things are happening in society, whether you're paying attention to them or not, it doesn't matter. You're still going to have to make a decision on those things. And the fact that you're not paying attention to the game is a problem, but you're being framed by someone that told you, the catcher that put the ball here. So they're looking over their shoulder saying, hey, you have to make a decision here, and they're holding the ball in the strike zone, so you're going to call it a strike. Even though the pitch was a ball, it was so far outside the strike zone, you weren't paying attention, but it got framed inside the strike zone. So the mainstream media doesn't have to report a story as truth or fact or real or genuine. They don't have to tell you the whole story. They're not going to tell you people's motives. They're just going to tell you, hey, this is in the strike zone, call it a strike. And you're, as a casual observer or not paying attention, you're going to call it a strike. So we, the people, we are the umpire. We have to make these decisions, and our decisions determine the outcome of the game. Okay? And this is very real, and this is very serious. And we have a lot of people that aren't paying attention to the game and aren't paying attention to what's going on. They're not paying attention to the rules. They're not paying attention to who's benefiting from framing. They're not paying attention to who's being hurt by framing. They're not paying attention. They don't know the rules. They don't know the games that these politicians are playing. They're not paying attention to politicians and mainstream media framing things to their benefit. They're not paying attention to the agenda of the catcher. They're not paying attention to the agenda of the person doing the framing. They're not understanding that the people doing the framing are benefiting from the framing. Okay? So we, the people, have to make decisions that are affecting the outcome of our society for other human beings, every single one of them, for the next generation, for the people that are living today, people that are living tomorrow, people that aren't born yet. We are making decisions for the future and for our existence today based on framing. Okay? We need to understand that the mainstream media has an agenda. And they're framing information, they're framing data, they're leaving out details because those details hurt their framing. They're leaving details out that hurt their agenda. You need to understand that this is happening. I'm not saying good or bad one way or the other. You just need to understand that it's happening. Do your own homework and do your own research, and understand that when you get presented a story and you get presented a headline and you have a 24-hour newscast that has to fill this time, okay? You have to understand, one of the worst things to ever happen to this country was a 24-hour news station, because now they have to fill this time. Then when they used to have to give you news in an hour, the only things that mattered were the most important stories. The most important stories were the only thing that mattered. But now when there's a 24-hour several 24-hour news stations, they have a lot of time to fill. They have a lot of program to fill. And whenever they're doing it for profit, go look at the billions and millions of dollars these companies sell ads for. They have obligations to these advertising companies. And if you don't believe me, look no further than the fight Facebook is in right now, because they have over 1,000 advertisers boycotting Facebook advertising because they're demanding that Facebook do something about conservative viewpoints. So Facebook is being held at gunpoint by their advertisers to block and remove conservative viewpoints from their platform. Okay? So you can't tell me that these advertisers don't hold the power over their mainstream media, which these people answer to their advertisers, and they're not going to say or do anything that's going to upset their advertisers, because that's where their income comes from. Okay? So if you don't believe and don't understand that framing is happening, you're being framed. You've been framed. Okay? They're looking for a particular result, and they will say and do whatever they have to do to get you into this box. They're going to frame you into this box because they don't want you to think outside of this. They don't want you to see outside of this. They don't want you to see all the balls that are happening. They only want you to see the strikes. So they're going to frame everything into this box. Okay? You've been framed. You're being framed. You're being manipulated. You need to understand this, okay? I don't know, I'm just rambling at this point, but this is so important that you understand framing, and you need to understand who's doing it and why they're doing it. You need to ask yourself. You need to stop being a casual observer. You need to stop being a headline reader. You need to stop just listening to one person's viewpoint, whether you listen to one channel or one news station or you listen to 12 hours of the same station a day, it doesn't matter. You need to understand that these people have an agenda, okay? They have an agenda. Millions and millions and millions of dollars are behind this. Their livelihood is dependent on this information. They're dependent on you believing what they're saying. Their framing is so important, and you need to understand it's happening. You don't have to change everything that you're doing, but you need to understand that framing is happening and framing is important, and the court of public opinion matters. Because at this point, law and order is almost out the window. We're at a point now where mob rule. We're almost at a point where it's a free-for-all, okay? And framing stories is causing a lot of this. The way this information is being disseminated and the way it's being framed and the way it's being packaged and sold to you, because that's what it is. It's not being given to you out of the kindness of their heart. They're not giving this, they're not trying to protect you out of the goodness of their soul. They're getting paid to do this. Okay? There was a day and time when newspapers could barely support themselves because they were products of truth. They were products of disseminating information. They were journalists. Okay? They want to disseminate facts. These news outlets and media outlets have abandoned that a long time ago. These are panic pimps that disseminate information. They sell panic porn for profit. Okay? And they're framing information to fit inside that box to deceive you. And you need to understand that. Whether you think they're trying to deceive you a little bit or a lot of bit, deception is deception. And once you open that door and you walk in, there's no turning back. They own you. They own you. Understand that they want you in this box, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you see that you've been framed, everything else becomes so obvious and so clear that you've been framed. Okay? So please understand, these media outlets have an agenda. Okay? And what I'll do is I'll make a video for you how I understand this and how I know this as a business owner and how I can relate it to a small business. So I'll make that video soon. But please understand that these media outlets have an agenda. Okay? They are for profit. You've been framed. They are trying to manipulate the outcome, and they're not trying to do it in any way that's going to hurt them. Do you think they're going to frame a pitch that's going to hurt them? If a strike crosses the plate, you think they're going to try to frame it as a ball? You need to understand that you don't have near as much control over what's going on in here as you think. You're getting fed breadcrumbs, and it's a little at a time, a little at a time, a little at a time, until you're so far, you're carrying around so much false information and so many false beliefs that you use it as a shield to protect you from reality. And not only are you putting yourself in a dangerous situation, you're putting your family in a dangerous situation, you're putting your kids in a dangerous situation, because we can't live this lie anymore. We can't live in a framed society. We have to break these chains. We have to end this information war, because there is a war on information right now. And we have to put our foot in the ground and tell this generation and the next generation that the truth matters. The truth matters. It's not the spin you can put on the story. It's not the framing you can put on a story. It's not the package you can put the story in. That the truth matters. The truth matters. Getting fired up. Okay, so I'll end this video, but please understand that the truth matters. You've been framed. I've been framed. We've all been framed.